Howdy, and welcome to LeeReads, where I talk about the books I've been reading and enjoying lately. This video is my reading wrap-up from the month of January. I feel like I started the year really strong with the books that I finished, although I was pretty occupied with some personal and professional things throughout last month. I wasn't able to read as much as I normally would, and that's also why I wasn't able to do a video last week. But even though there are fewer books than usual, they are really strong. I enjoyed them a lot. I actually got book hangovers from them, which almost put me into a reading slump. The only thing about these books is that they're kind of hard to describe and talk about, so I will do my best. I'll go in the order in which I read the book. The first book is Pure Nessie by Susanna Clarke. I have had this ebook on my Kindle for such a long time, and I don't know why I was so reluctant to start it, but in my efforts to read the books that I already own, I finally picked it up right on New Year's Day. This is the one that is the most difficult to talk about because I don't want to ruin the story. You have to let the story unfold and experience it and come to understand it as you go. It begins with a man who's called Pure Nessie. He has been living in this house, but it's not a normal house. The house is the world. The lower halls are filled with ocean. The upper halls of the house are filled with sky, and so he mainly lives in the middle hall of this house. There is only one other living being there in this house, as far as he's aware, who he periodically interacts with and learns that this other person is embarking on somewhat of a science project, and Pure Nessie is determined to help him. The book is not written in a straightforward manner. There are some time hops, and just the way Pure Nessie thinks is not straightforward, but it's a product of the house, and you learn why as the story goes. And Susanna Clarke did a really great job at hinting at things that you as the reader pick up on that Pure Nessie doesn't. So as the story is going on, there is a sense of, oh gosh, I think I know which way this is going. Oh, and this isn't going to be good. It's I wouldn't say it's like an unfolding dread because this is not a horror, but it's just very gripping. It made me want to just keep reading the book. I think one of the reasons I hadn't picked it up for a long time was I thought it was going to be too literary for my taste, and I didn't actually find that to be the case at all. So if you've had that perception in your head, I don't think that's something that you should worry about. And I understand sort of the hype that surrounded this book when it came out a couple years ago, and I'm very glad I read it. I wish that I could explain more about it, but I don't want to ruin the experience for anyone. If this sounds at all intriguing, I urge you to at least pick it up, give it a couple chapters, and I think you'll probably find that you get very invested. The next book I read was a young adult fantasy, one of my e-arcs that I have, Spice Road. It's very upper YA with definite adult appeal. The pacing in the novel, it goes and goes and goes. You start with a bang and you keep going. However, the author did sink some time into the world building. Everything felt very fleshed out. In my experience, often with YA fantasy, the pacing is kept so high that you don't really get to sink into the world so much. So this one had a really nice balance. This is an Arabian-inspired fantasy. The main character and her people are in this isolated magical kingdom that the rest of the world doesn't know about, and she is one of those who kind of patrols the sands outside the city, hunting and killing jinn and monsters and making sure that no intruders come into their land. What I really like about this magic is it's like a tea magic. It made me think a little bit of Dune with the spice. So whenever they drink this magical tea, it helps to enhance their magical affinity. The main character in the story, her affinity is with metals and wielding a blade or a sword, but other characters have other affinities. And the spice is basically religious to them. It's extremely well protected and highly prized, and they don't want any outsiders to get their hands on it. But the main character's older brother has been charged with stealing spice over the years and bringing it to the outside lands. Their government sends a party of people to bring him back. Our main character joins that party. She's trying to save her brother, and they get embroiled in this larger plot that is unfolding between their kingdom and the surrounding ones. I thought it was very, very well written. I really liked the characters, the emotional depth to them, their conflicting motivations. It was truly epic in scope with, as I said before, the perfect balance of world building, good pacing, good characters, interesting magic. Sometimes the main character drove me a little bit crazy, and I had to remind myself that she is 17 in the story and sometimes makes impulsive, dumb decisions, which somewhat frustrated me, but on the other hand, I could understand them, so they didn't pull me out of the story. I think this one's really well done, and you should check it out. Next, another book that is not my usual go-to, because again, I thought it was going to be too literary when in fact it's actually a science fiction murder mystery, is The City and the City by China Miéville. I only picked this one up because I heard Tori Morrow talk about it as she was discussing some of her very favorite reads from 2022. And the way she described it just really piqued my interest. There's a detective, of course, it opens with a dead body and a new case. He has to figure out who murdered this woman. But it's a little bit more complicated than that, because the detective lives in a city, like any normal city standard, a contemporary style, urban setting. But his city, this is the part that's going to be so difficult to explain. His city is layered with another city. It's not that one is imaginary and the other one isn't. They both exist at the same time in the same place, and the citizens of these two cities have been trained their entire lives to not notice people and aspects from the other city. If they do notice anyone from the other city, that is called a breach. That is very illegal, and this organization, this group of people called Breach, come in and take care of the problem. So you really don't want to breach. That's very bad. There are areas in the city where it's not totally one city or the other, where they cross-hatch, they overlap, and it's easier to accidentally breach in these spots if you're not paying attention. Turns out that the victim of the murder that he's investigating is in one of these cross-hatched areas, and it starts to become apparent to him that this victim shouldn't be in his city, that maybe the murder happened in the other city, and he has to leave his city, travel to the other city, and in pursuit of this investigation. But how the author drops these subtle hints, you just experience it as the character is starting to work through this investigation, and it is so interesting. I feel as though my description of it hasn't done it justice. I couldn't stop thinking about this novel as I was reading it and in the days afterwards. So Piranesi gave me some strange dreams, and this book gave me some strange dreams as well. It's not just that the world building is unique, the dialogue of the characters, just the characters themselves, how they think, how they react to the things that are going on, just feels so genuine. And of course, the underlying issue that the main character finds himself starting to investigate starts becoming quite dangerous. It's more than just one dead person. The last book that I physically read was The Spare Man by Mary Robinette Kowal. This again is another kind of detective mystery in space. It follows the main character Tesla, who is a very famous inventor. She has just gotten married. She's on her honeymoon, sort of undercover, trying to lay low and not be surrounded by paparazzi the whole time, with her husband, who is a retired detective. And right at the beginning of the story, there is a murder, and they accuse her husband of doing it, and she is determined to figure out what really happened. It was quite a fun read. I liked the idea of this closed murder mystery on a luxury space yacht that's traveling from Earth to Mars, and how different levels of technology play into investigating a crime, what happens when someone's under surveillance or under suspicion for committing this crime, and how Tesla figures out what really happened. So this one was a fun read, and I would encourage you to pick it up if you kind of like this genre that I apparently like, which is mysteries in space. And then the last book that I read is a reread of an old favorite. I listened to the audiobook throughout the month, Daughter of the Forest by Juliette Marillier. I have done a video about why I love this novel and why I think everyone should read it, which I will link above and we'll go into more detail. But this novel, if it ever ceases to make me emotional while I'm reading it, then I must be dead. Because Juliette Marillier does such a wonderful job with the character work, like laying the foundation to make you care about this character, Serha, and presenting extremely personal stakes for this character and those that she loves. And the decisions that these characters make on a small scale do impact a wider plot. This novel is steeped in Irish folklore. It is set back when the Saxons and the Vikings were threats to the Irish coastline. Clan ties were very important, and there's rivalries and dangers between England and Ireland. Serha and her 6 older brothers are cursed by an evil stepmother, sorceress. Her older brothers get turned into swans, and she narrowly escapes and learns that the only way that she can help save her brothers is if she cannot speak, she can't say a single word or they'll die, and she has to spin and weave 6 shirts for her brothers out of this very noxious, horrible plant. Until she places it over the swans' heads, the curse will not be broken. And of course, many things happen along the way that make this extremely challenging. She's spirited away by a group of Britons who come across her while they are searching for someone that they love. And these plots intertwine and interweave just beautifully. And it's one of my favorite novels. I will read it at least once every year. It's the first book in the Seven Waters series, and you can read the standalone if you would like. And those are the books that I read in January. Very strong books that made me think a lot. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I really hope that I've encouraged you to try some of these novels, and if I have, please let me know in the comments below. If you don't mind, please like and subscribe. That really helps my channel out. And as always, don't forget to support your local library. Thanks. Bye.